Now we want to get into how do you help a church change? How do you help a church make that U-turn so that we become that people on mission who are reaching people who aren't here yet? And we've seen some wonderful things happen. We've been working with senior pastors. I've been working with senior pastors for 3 years now. And I'm working with some folks who have been working with senior pastors for about 15 years. And we're seeing some real progress. We're seeing some churches actually begin to change in their culture so that they are outreach oriented and so that more people are beginning to come to Christ. And isn't that what we all long for? So as we began these pastor cohorts, and what I'm going to do is kind of talk you through the story of what's happened, and then I'm going to sort of make parallels. We have focused on senior pastors, but you don't need to be a senior pastor to begin to implement this. I will say, though, that in order to bring culture change to a whole church, the senior pastor has to be pretty integrally involved. And so that's what I did. I began these pastor cohorts by going around and talking to my pastor friends. And I remember the first pastor of a large church I talked to. I sat down with him, and I'm not going to say his name or the church because many of you from around at least the area I live in would know him. And I just want to keep this kind of fun and anonymous that way. But I remember telling him about the vision for getting 7 or 8 pastors together into a huddle size. Jesus discipled people in factors of 12. He gathered 12 people around him, and change happened that way. And then he had an even more intimate group of 3. And so I thought, well, Jesus was able to help 12 change. Maybe I can handle 6 or 7. So asked 6 or 7 senior pastors to join me in a huddle to go on the journey together of changing the direction of our churches and helping them become places oriented on mission, on outreach. And I remember talking to this senior pastor and saying, do you want to go on that journey with me? And he said, I've got just the person I want to send you. And he was talking about this associate pastor and this lay leader. And I said, hold on. I want you to know I love your church. I'd love you to be involved, but I don't think this is for you. I'm going to pray for your church that you become outreach oriented. I'm going to bless your church in that direction. I'm going to root for you, but honestly, if you want to bring culture change, a U-turn to your whole church, you can't send somebody. You got to be involved. And when you're ready to do that, I would love to jump in with you. Until you are, I'm going to pray for you. And this pastor was kind of taken aback. He hadn't had very many people come into his office and say they didn't want his church involved because his church is a key leading church. What his church does, other churches follow. So he suddenly engaged at a new level, and he started to say, well, tell me about this and what would need to happen. And he gave me a lot of help as we move into our cohorts, and he did end up getting involved with us. As we go into our cohorts, we bring churches together that are similar size, similar stage, and we bring pastors together who get very excited about learning from each other. And that's what happens in these cohorts. And we work on 3 things. It's pretty simple. We work on helping all of our leaders begin to be a witness regularly, share their faith personally. Secondly, we help every leader in the church take responsibility for reaching out through their ministry. And thirdly, we help churches think about pathways for helping people come to Christ. And what we've found is if churches can address those 3 issues, all their leaders especially, but all their people beginning to engage in personal witness, all their leaders taking responsibility for outreach through their ministry, and the church creating pathways for people who don't know Jesus to come to Jesus, then churches are revolutionized. And it gets very exciting. And it's a culture change that happens. And then the programs we implement, it's process-oriented, the programs we implement then they fly, they soar, they really reach people who don't know Jesus because the culture of the church has become a place that now people can come in and come to faith and people are excited about it. So I'm going to talk about one of those right now, that first one. How do you get leaders to get excited about sharing their faith. And here's what we found. Too often leaders try to motivate their people to be involved in outreach, and they're not doing it themselves. So how do leaders begin to engage and actually share a personal witness in an ongoing, vibrant way themselves? And so here's what we found. People need accountability, inspiration, and instruction in personal witness every 30 days. If they don't get that, witness falls off the map. Evangelism, outreach, they fall off the map. But if leaders can every 30 days check in with somebody, some group, some community of people, and share their stories and talk about how committed they are to personal witness and what's happening, if they can do that simple practice, witness, evangelism becomes a much more vibrant part of their lives.